All right, we're going to move on to our injury segment. And to do that, we're going to bring on Virginia Zakas from Inside Injuries. It's another messy injury report this week. Virginia, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Let's start with Aaron Jones. He showed up on the injury report with a calf strain late in the week. We got the word that he is sitting out today. So I think the question a lot of people have is how long is he going to be down and how much might this injury impact him once he eventually returns?
Mhm. So I'm really glad actually that he's not playing today. He underwent an MRI after injuring his calf in the middle of the week, and it showed a mild strain. So that's good news, nothing too serious. But calf strains are really easy to aggravate. So if he were to play today, he would have risked making it far worse. But the good news is right now, because it's a mild strain, our algorithm is showing a 2 week optimal recovery time. Still don't necessarily think he should play next week because, again, it's really easy to aggravate these injuries. But if he sits this week and next week as well, then I think he'll be good to go after that. Our algorithm has him in the high risk category right now. If he plays next week, he'll still be in that high risk category. And his health performance factor, which is our metric to predict a player's performance, is sitting at 50%, which is below average. And it'll still be below average next week as well. But again, if he waits 2 weeks, I think he'll be good to go after that.
Yeah, fortunately for the Packers, they have good running back depth. Maybe they can lean into that a little bit, give Jones that time. And they have been a pretty conservative staff as far as letting players take the time they need to get back from injuries. We've seen that with Devontae Adams in recent years. Let's talk about Michael Thomas. He's now dealing with an ankle injury and a hamstring injury. Is this a case where maybe he pushed himself to come back a little bit too quickly? He's obviously not going to play this week, but when do you think we're going to see Michael Thomas back and at 100% again?
Yeah, so of course he started with that high ankle sprain in week one. It sounds like he was close to fully recovered when he was supposed to play in week five before he was benched for disciplinary reasons. And then he just suffered this hamstring injury. Um, for him, his optimal recovery time is 2 to 3 weeks, which means we also don't think he should play next week. I don't necessarily think this was a compensatory injury because ankle sprains don't typically result in hamstring strains. But he did miss over a month, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just tried to do too much too fast, and his body just wasn't ready to go, full speed and be 100% at practice. So um, definitely the right decision for him to sit this week, and should sit next week as well because these soft tissue muscular strains are so easy to aggravate.
Now, in your column this week, you suggested that Joe Mixon could also miss week 8, that he should miss week 8, and then the Bengals, of course, have a bye in week 9. So if they do follow that, do you trust him to come back and be 100% healthy Joe Mixon coming out of that bye week?
Mhm. Yeah, so I was looking at our algorithm's projections today. Right now, he's a high injury risk, poor health performance factor. Not a surprise at all. Foot sprains are really tough to play through, especially as a running back. If he returns next week, he's going to be slightly better, still high injury risk, but below average health performance factor. Now, if he waits until week 10, his health performance factor will be in that above average to peak category, which is very good. So the best decision for him is going to be to sit through that bye week, give himself a full month for his foot sprain to heal. And if he does that, I think he'll be good to go. Shouldn't have any lingering effects of this injury. But a week 8 return is probably going to be pushing it.
Let's talk about Baker Mayfield. He has been dealing with a rib injury. How much do you think that's been impacting his performance these last few weeks, especially?
Yeah, so he underwent X-rays on his ribs, which were negative, likely just dealing with bruised ribs, maybe some bruised cartilage, which can be really painful for a few weeks. But at this point, I don't really think it's something that should be impacting his performance. Now, one thing that they didn't really touch on and haven't reported is a shoulder injury. But on that same play, if you watched how he reacted right after, he seemed to be kind of dangling his arm to the side a little bit. And based on how he fell, I'm concerned that he also suffered a mild AC sprain to his throwing shoulder, which would be at this point a bigger concern than the chest injury. Right now, he's probably dealing with a little lingering soreness, might still need to wear some extra padding around his chest today to protect it. But I think he'll play a lot better today. But again, we need to keep an eye on that shoulder as well as the chest injury for the next week or so. After that, I think he should be in the clear.
Yeah, he looked really uncomfortable throughout that
Mhm.
game last week. Let's talk about Juju Smith-Schuster for a moment. Just a little earlier, Jake said he thinks Juju's just done at age 23, but he's been on the injury report pretty much all season. When you see it, it seems like it's always a knee injury. What's going on with Juju? Is he being physically limited by this injury? Is it simply a usage thing? Like, how much of a role is health playing in this disappointing season that we're seeing from him?
Yeah, I definitely think his knee injury has a little bit to do with it. The last 3 weeks, he's missed practice on Wednesday. The weeks before that, he missed, I think, 2 practices each week. So that's not something you ever want to see. He is getting in full practices by the end of the week, which is good, but he's clearly not 100%. This is one of those times where a guy is trying to tough it out and be out there for his team, but he's really just lengthening his recovery. Had he just missed a game early on when he was originally hurt at the beginning of the season, he would be 100% perfectly fine by now. I think we'd see, a lot more explosive plays from him. But right now, I think his knee is just holding him back a little bit. His health performance factor has moved back into that above average category. He's at 68% right now, which is a lot better than he's looked in recent weeks. So hopefully he's turning the corner. But his injury risk still remains high. So it won't take much for him to tweak his knee, and then he'll kind of be starting back over at zero, which is obviously not what we want to see. But I'm hoping if he can make it through the next few weeks without any setbacks, hopefully in the second half of the season, we'll see a much more exciting and explosive player.
It's just really unfortunate, too. They don't have a bye week coming up for him to get that rest that he seems to really need at this point in the season. Virginia, thanks for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate your time and your insight.
Thanks. Good to be here.
That's Virginia Zakas from Inside Injuries. Give her a follow on Twitter at @VZakas and @InsideInjuries. Be sure to check out InsideInjuries.com.